I always say, if you're gonna fail, fail fast. But if you see an opportunity and the data, not your emotion, the data is telling you that you can find a successful path out of this, then absolutely don't quit.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm super excited for our panel of co-hosts. Thanks guys for joining me. I'm going to actually pass it over to Scott, who's going to introduce our next guest.
Great, thank you. We're excited to have you. Today we have Leigh Angman, founder of 6 different companies that's lasted over 25 years. So that's something to say about itself, so I can't wait to get into that. And serial entrepreneur. Glad you're here. Looking forward to it.
Oh, thanks so much, Scott. And appreciate you all being here. Really value this opportunity. So thanks for letting me have it. My name's Leigh Angman, as Scott mentioned, and I have founded or co-founded 6 companies in the last 25 years, all of which are still active in one way or the other. I have owned restaurants and pubs in Vancouver in Canada for the last 22 years now. And I think, my life has really been about observing the mistakes that I've made in business. And I love the expression, you either win or you learn. And thankfully, I have learned a few things from those mistakes that I've made. So yeah, I've written a book that is all about kind of that process over the last 25 years of owning companies, specifically in the last 15 years, the framework that has led our companies to find a more sustainable level of success than I have experienced in prior ventures that I've done.
You have a cool story about how you turned a failing restaurant with over like $550,000 in debt into a thriving pub, basically right before the Vancouver Olympics. I'd love to hear more about that story.
All right. There's a lot of, self kind of reflection and, personal admitting when you've done something that isn't that amazing. 5 years into a restaurant that we started in Vancouver as a naive group of 5 friends in 2004, just didn't have the structure. I always like to say also that there's not businesses that I've seen that have failed because of a lack of passion. It's a lack of structure. So 5 years into this, we found ourselves in debt, $550,000, which was pretty terrifying. I had, as I mentioned, 4 other partners, one of which was my brother, who has always been with me and strong, and 3 other guys that were very, very close friends of mine. There was all sorts of debate about what to do at that time. One of the guys said, I don't think that keeping on with this is going to work. So he kind of signed off, and it was a group of 4 of us, but I took a bold step of remortgaging my house to invest another about $300,000. We downsized the restaurant into the pub side only, which was just over a quarter the size of it, and completely renovated it, started from scratch. And we opened the Monday before the Olympics hit Vancouver in February of 2010. We had an 8-year plan to pay off this $850,000 in debt. But long story short, we opened up that day and during the Olympics, we exploded. And this new version of this pub called Relish in Vancouver turned out to be wildly successful. And just over 16 months after we opened our doors the second time, we paid off our debts and sailed off into the future with the restaurant. So
you beat that like 8-year goal.
It was a bold and terrifying step, but something that I'm very proud of. And it was at that time that the framework for the book, which I call SPRUCTIS, which I'll explain in a minute, started to come into real focus. There were pieces of this that I was using before, but it started to come together at that time.
Leigh, I want to just, before getting into that, can you just explain how it was that you knew this was going to be successful? I mean, this is like a crazy idea that you're coming up with, and you're basically mortgaging your house, right? Why not? Let's just get rid of the house. I mean, what gave you the confidence that you were going to pull this off?
I would love to tell you that it was calculated, brilliant confidence, but it was statistically observed trends that were happening in the business at the time that gave me the confidence to kind of move forward. It was terrifying. And as anyone who knows, and listen, I mean, I've met a couple of other people in here today, Scott in particular, you know, you scaled business to $1 billion. We're talking about $550,000 in debt. It doesn't matter whether you're in a business of $550,000, $5.5 million, $55 million of debt. If that's the, you know, economy of scale that you're living in, it causes all sorts of stress and anxiety with business partners and personal relationships and all that kind of thing. So I had observed that the vast majority of the revenue was coming from this newly minted pub side that we had created. And it was a long negotiation process with the landlord. But when you realize that, you know, the vast majority of your revenue is coming from one side of this 7,000 square foot restaurant, there's such a long backstory to this, Joel, you know, but it was calculated observing of data telling me to make a decision. And that's one of the very most important things that I learned during that time. There's so many people that come to me and say, hey, I'm going to open a restaurant. What advice can you give me? And I say, well, why do you want to do it? And they say, well, because I want to pour wine for my friends on a Friday night. I said, don't open a restaurant. You're in trouble.
Invite them to your house.
Exactly. They can pour wine for me anytime they want, but certainly never going to partner with them in a restaurant. So
it's an incredible story. I as you know, I owned a nightclub for about 2 years, a restaurant for about 6 months. The restaurant was was extremely hard. The nightclub was extremely hard. To your point, though, not having the systems in place, like how do you track and organize it? So that framework, again, I got out of it because it was like it was a complete nightmare because I just didn't know. It was fun, it was exciting, but to your point, you can pour drinks for your friends at home. You don't need to buy an entire bar to do so. And so, learning experience, yes, but for those that are out there that are seasoned in the restaurant business or the nightclub or bar business, or just getting started or wanting to, what are some of those things that you run through, those questions, those thought process to kind of help them understand if they should do it, and if so, what they should do to actually grow it? Yeah,
it's great question, Corey. I think one of the first things that I like to ask clients of mine and new people that are maybe not necessarily new to small business, and I call small to medium business, and that's what we focus on. That's companies doing up to $15 million a year in revenue. I say to them, do you know your profitability every 8 to 14 days? Mm-hmm. And if they say yes, I'm like, you are shockingly in the minority.
In an anomaly. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you don't, well, then we've got a lot to talk about, because we have developed a structure that allows, and there's a small part of this SPRUCTIS framework that allows you to, using free tools that are available online, to know what your profitability is at least every 8 days and up to a max of 14 days. And clearly, if you don't know your financial health in your business, there's no way that you're going to be able to make educated decisions and informed decisions about how to support and scale and grow your business. Yeah.
Does the 14 days become because of the process of the food and the liquor and the beer all turning over every 14 days?
That's a good question. We run on 4-week periods as opposed to months, because we know that every 28 days has 4 weekends in it. Particularly in the restaurant industry, it's important that when I'm analyzing this January to last January might have had 4.5 or 5 weekends, whereas this January might not. When it comes down to periods, it's 2 sets of 14 days. So that's why on the outset, it's 14. Every half a period at least, I should say, at worst. But on the inside, it's the day after. 10
years ago, when we bought a shopping center in Atlanta, Georgia, tells you how much I know about a restaurant business, but my partner's like, hey, we're going to own this restaurant. I said, yeah, 90+% of them go out of business. Why do we want to own this restaurant? This has been around for 105 years. I said, wow, okay. Well,
how could we screw this up?
Yeah, how can we screw this up? 6 months later, we were out of business. 6 months later, because we didn't have processes.
This conversation.
Yeah, we didn't have processes, and I was out of town investor, and he was running it. And when the day I saw him shopping at Kroger's to take to the restaurant to sell people, I'm like, when are you going to stop the bleeding? That's it. So
that's
great.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a vicious industry.
6 restaurants in 25 years.
Well.
You know your numbers.
But Leigh, on that point, right? So when things are going south, right? So you've got this business plan, you've got this vision for the company, and all of a sudden you're heading in the wrong direction. How do you deal with that moment, that inflection point? Is there a pivot mindset that you have to that? Like, what do? Do you just want to delude yourself and say, hey, we're going to fix it no matter what? Or what's the sort of logical thought process to survive?
Yeah, I think anyone who's been in a failing business knows exactly that feeling. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. And, it's interesting. Every time I see a for lease sign when I'm walking down the street in any kind of a city, I don't think, oh, there's a business there's a great opportunity. I think, God, there's the hopes and dreams of someone that were crushed. And it breaks my heart because I think about that. I know how that feels. So it is the concept of flying blind and being naive about how business operates that is the weakness. If you can have a personal relationship with yourself and have a set of personal accountability that allows you to realize, hey, I've got to accept these hard truths, but move on and make some decisions. When young entrepreneurs, I'm part of some men's groups in North America, and often I get people come up to me and they say, "Hey, what's the first word of advice that you give to someone that's in that position?" I always say, if you're gonna fail fast. But if you see an opportunity and the data, not your emotion, the data is telling you that you can find a successful path out of this, then absolutely don't quit. Don't give up. There's an incredible strength and power in perseverance. And everyone who's an entrepreneur, and many that I've met this last couple of days, it's a unique brand of person. That person to get up in the morning and say, I heard this once. I said, how do you describe entrepreneurialism? I can't remember who said this, but he goes, it's like waking up each morning and getting hit in the face with a baseball bat and then getting the occasional piece of positive reinforcement to remind you to keep going. It's about having that positive mindset. And again, gonna fail, get it done quick. Lick your chops, take the lessons and move on. Hopefully it gets better next time. But if you see a path to success, go hard.
I love
that. I love that. Well, could you go into the SPRUCTIS method?
Sure.
Kind of go over it for us? Yeah, because I want to make sure we
okay, great.
Talk about it.
SPRUCTIS, it's an acronym. So the book is called SPRUCTIS From Insight to Action. And it's a success framework for small to medium-sized businesses. And SPRUCTIS is an acronym for systems, processes, redundancy, urgency, communication, technology, integrity, and sales. Okay. And so that, after years of small wins and big losses, or things where you had one of the businesses, and by the way, Scott, it's not 6 restaurants, it's 6 businesses in different industries that we'd spoken about. So the idea is that it didn't matter what industry it was. I realized that those businesses that I was involved in and those that I was observing from other people that had found success started to have these patterns. And I started to recognize these patterns. What were the things about these businesses that allowed them to succeed versus those, even the ones that I was involved with, that were failing or not doing as well? And if you think about SPRUCTIS, it's like a Venn diagram of 8 circles. Okay? Each one of them represented by one of the letters in SPRUCTIS. And where you see the gold of any business succeeding is the middle of all of those circles. And if you can hit each one of those things and attain excellence in each one of those letters, you're statistically far more likely to find success in your business.
I like that.
Love that. Yeah, I think especially in the restaurant business, that why mine only lasted 6 months too, is that there's no margins, and I got a general manager in place, and I'm like, well, unless I sit here every day and run this thing for 14 hours a day, happening. I'm not going to make any money on this. You know, like the business might keep going, but there's no actual profit. And I think one of the things you mentioned earlier is that knowing your numbers. A lot of times you see a lot of companies and entrepreneurs, whether even if they're brand new at it or if they've gone for a while, that they have this idea of how much gross revenue the business is making, which is good. You want to know that as well, but the profit is what actually matters. What are the actual margins? Is there profit here to have any kind value. And I think especially in a restaurant business and other ones like that, they just don't know and they want to keep the party going, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, I think it's a rude awakening if people aren't checking the numbers every single week.
That's
so we
it.
have meetings every single Tuesday with our CFO, and it's like, what's the profit margins for this week, for this month, this quarter? Like, what's the projection? What are the ads that we're running? What's the profitability on ads and things like that? So I think it's just very important to check the numbers, because I've talked to many, even just entrepreneurs, even if they're maybe solo entrepreneurs, maybe they're just kind of getting going. But a lot of the times I've had conversations with individuals and they really don't know their numbers. They're like, oh, we made this sale over here. It was great. We've got a dozen clients. And that's like one of the things I'm like, oh, what's the profitability on your revenue? And they're like, I don't know, So I think it's really important what you're doing and what you're teaching on that side too. And I love the aspect of when you said you walked by a leased building on that side, and kind of thinking like the idea of like power of a delusional optimism with people, right? Because like we all talk about mindset a lot of the time. You go to an entrepreneur event and it's like rah, you got to change your mindset, you got to do this. But that aspect of like being optimistic, but also thinking smart about like you change the mindset. But a lot of people will walk by, like you said, like I didn't even think about that. Like I literally walk by a leased building sometimes. I'm like, this would be a great podcast studio. But that just automatically comes into my head. Right. But that's the crazy thing is like, there is a backstory for everybody that fails and goes out of business. And I love what you're creating with this book. So
fair. Yeah. A couple of things that come to mind when we're talking about this. I am surprised at how often I ask someone, hey, how's your business doing? And they go, well, it's doing pretty good. And I say, how do you know that? And they say, well, look at my bank account. I got money in it. Yeah. Like, okay. So the concept of looking at a balance sheet. Exactly. Right. The concept of looking at a balance sheet, which is effectively, where you sit financially right now, exclusively is never going to give you a clear picture of your business. If you have the ability to look at your profit and loss in conjunction with this is not reinventing the wheel. This is not new inventive information I'm giving you here. But again, continue to be surprised at the number of small to medium-sized business owners that don't have that structure in place to allow them to even understand what that means, And Tamara, you were also talking about the concept of delusional optimism. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Some people call it manifestation. Some people, call it, there's a book I think called The Secret that's about creating your mindset
law of attraction,
to get into that kind of thing. And, definitely the law of attraction. This concept that I have used since I started learning it in late high school. I've read so many business books and I try to read them all the time. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill had a tremendous impact on me. This idea that you can change your mindset to allow you to prepare for any kind of inevitable fallback or pain point that comes in your way. I know for a fact that when I go into any sales call, or if I go up to, trying to acquire a particular piece, an asset or whatever it happens to be, I know these things aren't going to be easy. I know I'm not going to succeed all the time when I do this, but this idea that I'm deluded. I know I'm deluded, but I don't care. It's not like lying to myself, because I absolutely have personal accountability and I am responsible for me. But the bottom line is that if I tell myself I'm going to succeed in a particular endeavor, far more often than not,
you succeed.
I am. There was a guy that I met also years later. It was in Atlanta somewhere. It was some networking event. And I walked up and I said, I've watched you speak publicly. I said, how you doing today? And he goes, I'm super fantastic, but I'm getting better with every minute. And I kind of laughed. And I'm like, obviously over the top, but I think that epitomizes this concept about delusional optimism, right? Yeah. I know that the guy's not on 10 all the time. Yeah. But if he has that mindset, how are you doing, Joel? I'm amazing. Yeah. How you doing, Scott? Right. I'm fantastic today. Yeah. As opposed to, how are you doing? well, you know, the wife's been on my butt and the kids are a pain. And, you know, it was a real
like,
tough drive
move
into
away
work
from that
today.
person.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
Even the energy that you're projecting when you're saying that with positivity, like you're attracting that law of attraction too.
Absolutely.
I'm doing great. You know, I'm doing fantastic. Team's awesome. Like you're putting that energy out there and it just kind of comes back on that. And that's what I've seen as well.
Yes. Your brain recognizes this voice. You know, it's the voice that you've heard the most in your life. And when you tell yourself things are going to be amazing, your brain's like, oh, okay.
Let me look for the amazing. Let me find the things to confirm my
like
bias.
The same concept of the daily routine, right? That you can choose to wake up on the wrong side of the bed or the right side of the bed. It's always the right side of the bed. Well, it might be the left, but you know what I mean? But it's always the right. So like you choose that moment each day to go up. Do I get up and make my bed? Yes. Do I choose the right side of the bed? It's all that the mentality and positivity, just like you said, that like you're not delusional. You're just creating this manifestation of what your life should be on this track.
I think that it is a little delusional. Like I think it's okay to admit to yourself that it's delusional.
I agree,
but ignore
actually.
that.
Yes,
Right?
Yes.
Push forward hard.
True.
There was some, but that combined with the technical aspect, I think that's what's unique, what you're putting out here right now. Like the power of positive thinking is not exactly, revelatory, right? Like everybody knows, be positive.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're integrating it into technical know-how, advice, data analysis. And there was something you said earlier. I want to make sure you can expand upon it.
Sure.
Expound upon it a bit, which is the free tools that are available for people, because a lot of folks don't have the ability to borrow $300,000 off their home, right? So, but that doesn't mean they can't be successful entrepreneurs.
Or have
they can't hire
the
a
decision
CFO
making
or whatever else.
So can you share a little bit about
absolutely. I would love
what
to,
you're seeing?
Joel. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, that's great.
We use Google Sheets and the Google Drive framework heavily. And I know for a fact that we could triple, and I won't get into sales numbers or whatever, but there's significant, large restaurant. We could easily triple the sales numbers that we've done recently and operate within that framework and still know what our profitability is on a regular basis. So we've developed this entire system that allows us to track sales on a daily basis, to do bank reconciliations on a daily basis, to stay in tune with your financial health. And if you have a Gmail account, you can get access to sheets and build these frameworks out yourself. That is exactly what I do in my consulting business, is show people how to do it. The idea of saying, you need to spend $10,000 on bespoke software, it's insane. Owning restaurants.
Google can do math. I was like, Google does math.
It does. Owning restaurants for as long as I have, we get pitched 3 times a month about a new piece of bespoke software that's going to come in and change how we do everything. And they always say this: yes, you've got to do this, but you've got to change your behavior completely. And you have to get your customers to change their behavior completely. I say, I'm out. I don't want to use that. Here is a free access to a tool that can allow you to use myriad interconnected spreadsheets online, cloud-based, and connect them all and tie your sales, which is always the denominator, most often the denominator in the analysis you do of your business, to any kind of other analysis that you do. And love to speak to anyone out there more about that.
That's
good.
I love this conversation. I love your energy. I love your personality. I love your background, everything. And I'm excited for your book. I want to read your book. I know it's out too. So could you share with our audience a little bit more how they can pick up your book and anything else that you have going on, even to show social media, website, all that stuff?
Yeah. The book is available on Amazon right now. It actually was released a couple days ago. The book is available on Amazon. It was released a couple days ago. And it's there. We don't have an audio book yet, but I've had about 15 people in the last couple of days ask if it's an audiobook. So I think I'm going to start going down that road very soon.
Very good.
Our website is spructis.com, SPRUCTIS.com. And I'm the easiest guy in the world to get a hold of. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Leigh Angman, LEIGHANGMAN. And the only way that I have found success in the last 25 years is to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am. And it's very not difficult to do. And to obviously I have to bring something to the table, but the idea of meeting people that may be listening to this podcast. I love to learn from fellow entrepreneurs. So reach out, tell me your story. Let's talk about things. There's always an opportunity to learn from each other. And yeah, I love to do that.
Love it.
Good deal.
100%.
So great.
Well, thank you, Leigh, for joining us today. I truly appreciate you. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate all you.
Exciting.
Thanks for your time.
Exciting.
Great job.
Those that are watching, be sure to subscribe to Broadcast Your Authority on YouTube. Listen to us over on Apple or Spotify, and we'll see you in the next episode.